Honolulu's former police chief says he was forced to retire by the mayor. Arthur Joe Logan is now suing Rick Blangiardi and the city, claiming whistleblower retaliation. Lynn Kawano reports on the civil suit that was filed last night, Logan's last official day on the job.
The complaint asserts that Joe Logan was forced out of his position based upon threats and under duress for threats made by the mayor against himself and his family.
Newly retired police chief Joe Logan sat in between his wife and attorney but was advised not to comment during a press conference about the lawsuit filed late Thursday. Logan alleges Mayor Rick Blangiardi summoned him on May 28th and told him to resign, or Blangiardi would make it very difficult for Logan and his family. Logan took that as a threat and became distraught, causing severe emotional distress. 5 days later, Logan, under duress, met with the mayor and stated he would retire to avoid having himself, his family, and the department dragged through the drama.
The lawsuit alleges whistleblower retaliation for Joe Logan's opposition to the mayor's requests for certain illegal conduct related to policing.
He alleges Blangiardi was pressuring for more homeless sweeps in Chinatown and Waikiki and to provide media access to scanners, which is something the city council is also working on to get information out quicker.
The threats that we understood were threats that he would make up and create stories and provide the media false narratives regarding the chief.
Logan's 3-year tenure was tumultuous. Officer vacancies are now at 465. That's 22%. He faced criticism for giving millions of dollars back to the city instead of using that money to hire or retain officers. And he was criticized for not providing information to the public during dangerous situations. His attorney would not reveal what they are asking for, but multiple sources say Logan sent a demand letter last month seeking 2 years' salary. That's $500,000 to avoid the lawsuit. In a statement, Blangiardi called it a meritless complaint and said Logan voluntarily stepped down as chief and had every opportunity to rescind his resignation if he changed his mind over the last 2 months. The statement continued, the city will vigorously defend against these claims and remain firmly focused on strengthening public safety, advancing officer recruitment, and increasing public confidence in government. Logan is seeking a jury trial. I'm Lynn Kawano, Hawaii News Now.